Campaign 2006 is here, and your vote can make a difference. Comcast brings you the candidates on demand right now.
Our next candidate is dedicated and focused to property tax relief and education funding reform. Hi, I'm Bethany Watson, and you're watching a special edition of Comcast Newsmakers, Candidates on Demand. Joining me today is Marie deYoung, the Democratic candidate for Pennsylvania State Representative in the 163rd Legislative District. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me on your program, Bethany.
Yes. So you know these are two very hot topics. I'll start out by saying, what are you going to do differently?
The status quo is just simply unacceptable. In my district, the property tax burdens are extremely high. And as a state, we rank 42nd in fairness in how we tax for our schools. The system is not fair to the school districts, and it's not fair to our property owners. What I want to do is to shift away from a local property tax burden and to have one statewide low property tax rate. As it is when we allow local school districts to set the property rates. We have very, very high tax burdens in this part of the state. And in the middle of the state and the northern parts of the state, the rural parts, the tax burden is not as heavy. And yet those districts are getting back 75% of their funding from the state. Whereas in my district, in the 163rd, very few of our districts are receiving far less, millions of dollars less per district. For example, the William Penn district, if we had a 50-50 partnership with the state, would be getting about $8 or $9 million more per year. Upper Darby School District would be getting about $23 million per year. So I suggest that we have one low statewide rate to tax for the schools that draws more on income-based revenues rather than on property taxes, and that we have a 50-50 partnership between the state and the school district. The way we do for the state and townships when they want to buy tractors or equipment. We should have a 50-50 partnership with our school districts.
Okay. And what do your opponents have to say about that?
My opponent has been saying for the last 28 years that there's nothing that we can do to fix how we tax for our schools. He introduced legislation that he calls successful schools legislation, and then he never worked to get it passed. I think this is a leadership issue. I'm a former Army chaplain, I'm a former Army officer, and I have developed strategic plans and fought for good budgets to fund schools and also to fund health care programs in the military and in our community. And what I believe is that when we have new leadership in Harrisburg and when I'm elected, that we can introduce legislation to do two things: change how we tax to make it fair for every family, but also to target the resources so that we can improve education. We need violence prevention programs that will reduce taxes for everyone in the state, because we spend a lot of money in the state on remediation and on the justice system, that if we had spent it on early childhood development, universal kindergarten, screening for special education issues for children who are very young, violence prevention in the early years in school and in the community, expanded violence prevention programs. If we did those things, we would be able to reduce our taxes. Another thing, my opponent chairs the insurance committee, and he has allowed rules to go forward that permit our insurance companies to charge very, very high malpractice rates for doctors. Our doctors are leaving the state. That costs us. The state is actually paying malpractice insurance for the doctors, when what we should be doing is fighting to bring those premiums down. Stop the price gouging by the insurance companies. And my opponent allowed the insurance industry to overcharge small business owners. In my district, our school districts, our municipalities, they're small businesses. Our taxes are higher because our insurance premiums are higher because they're rated like small businesses.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. We're just about out of time, but best of luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this interview time.
Yes. This hour's newsmaker has been Marie deYoung, Democratic candidate for Pennsylvania State Representative in the 163rd Legislative District. This has been a special edition of Comcast Newsmakers, Candidates on Demand.